Their thorax is a little different because they don't have quite as long of a neck. So it's a little slightly different, but not much. Aortic arch. The first branch is what was the first branch called?
The subclavian.
Oh, not quite the other. Brachiocephalic. Yep. Brachiocephalic, and that splits off into the subclavian and the carotid. Exactly. The second branch is the other subclavian, so the left subclavian. Yeah. So arch going down, follow it all the way down into the abdominal cavity. It pops out right there. So abdominal aorta. We see this like sort of backwards K. That's really important because you will definitely see that on the exam to help you sort of like figure out where you are. So the first branch is the cephalic, and that splits into two right here. And you have the gastric and the hepatic. That's usually pretty hard to see on the Minx. We don't usually ask that on the exam. But then it keeps going into the splenic. And if we flip the spleen over, you have the posterior splenic and the anterior splenic. So posterior splenic artery, anterior splenic artery, the pink ones. This other part of the K is the cranial mesenteric artery, and that's going to the small intestine. You sort of see it just like goes right into that foldy, all those folds. So you keep following it down, and then it hits the caudal mesenteric. So cranial mesenteric, caudal mesenteric. I sort of snuck by adrenolumbar. The vein is a little easier to see. The artery is just kind of right underneath it. So adrenolumbar, and so that right there is the adrenal gland, and it's going into like the lumbar vertebrae. Renal vein, renal arteries underneath. So again, caudal mesenteric, iliolumbar, arteries and veins, external iliac, internal iliac. Those are the arteries. The veins, so we have our caudal vena cava going up, all the associated veins. Hepatic portal system. Pretty much named the same way. So we had, this was the cranial mesenteric artery, cranial mesenteric vein. Caudal mesenteric artery, caudal mesenteric vein, both going to the large intestine, or the veins coming from the large intestine. Posterior splenic vein on the posterior of the spleen. Anterior splenic vein. So posterior splenic vein, anterior splenic vein. Just look to see what part of the spleen it's at, anterior, posterior. And then those come together, and we're calling this branch the gastrosplenic vein. So it technically branches into the gastric and the splenic, but we don't worry about that branch. Just worry about this is the gastrosplenic vein. And they all come together at this point to make the hepatic portal vein, right here. And I'm pretty sure that's everything. Did I hit all of them?
I think so.